Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous male left behind and forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of July 31st, 2023, a date of marriage of 2012. He has an at-home MLCer who is a low-energy wallower. He says, have you known of any MLCers that were in therapy throughout their MLC? And if so, did it seem to help speed up the process or suppress the degree of mistakes made in replay? If yes, how did it compare to the average 3 to 7 year range you mentioned in your videos? My wife and I had a great marriage and relationship for 17 years. Out of nowhere, she flipped the switch and she was depressed or angry all of the time. I asked what's wrong and she said, I don't know. Finally, there was bomb drop and she said, I don't make her happy. Nothing makes her happy anymore. She felt like she accomplished nothing in her life and was running out of time, but I didn't know what she wants to do. Oh, but she didn't know what she wants to do. She reached out to a therapist and she started therapy. She won't speak to me or look at me. 3 months after bomb drop and she separated but moved to a spare room. She still knows she's planning on leaving and she's looking at apartments. Health insurance, bank accounts, it says still no. She's planning on leaving from looking at apartments, health insurance, bank accounts. She said in therapy that she's messed up and everything is always about me and she's done with responsibilities. Okay, so one question I have is, are you in therapy together? Because you said what she said in therapy. She used some very big keywords. She's done with the responsibilities. That's one I remember very clear. I remember the I'm calling the shots. I thought that these common phrases you hear, they actually use. Now, when you said, did it seem like, have I known one that's been in MLC therapy throughout their MLC? No. I'm not saying they are or not. Remember, the ones I speak with are you, the left behind and forward moving spouse. So I don't talk to the MLCers. So especially if we had a vanisher, they could be in therapy the whole time and I would never know about it. You could have somebody in therapy off and on. If they don't even live at home, they might not let you know they're in therapy. So I don't have the kind of feedback from a direct from an MLCer anyway. Oftentimes they will seek somebody out who will validate what they're going through. And what I mean, I don't mean like help them, guide them through. I mean validate, oh, you poor baby. They'll validate their victimhood. They will, oh, feelings are real, and they are. Feelings are real. You really need to do what you need to make you happy. They will just reinforce what's already going on. And they don't have a second side to it often. If they go to individual therapy, they don't have you there. And if they had you there, they'd add an additional challenge of who do I believe, or how do I get both partners to trust me? How do I get both partners to think that I understand and hear them? Because if your therapist agrees with you, but you haven't talked separately to know this, oh my, this woman's in midlife crisis. Well, what do we tell you here? We tell you, don't let them know about midlife crisis. Don't tell them they're in a midlife crisis. Don't insist. Don't go showing them literature. Hey, I know what's wrong with you, honey. Same thing with a therapist. Just because they're a therapist doesn't mean that that's going to be accepted. So the therapist might recognize the signs or not. It goes both ways. But they need to make sure that that person comes back next week. I think I can help this person, but not if I alienate them by telling them I know what's wrong with you and it's a midlife crisis. In other words, you're the problem. So from your point of view, then the therapist doesn't get it. But the therapist just can't let on that they get it. So there's some problems with therapy. And that doesn't mean that the therapist does get it. We get a lot of therapists, I'm sure, who don't get it. They don't know about midlife crisis, or they've been through their own. So they just want to validate and think, it's okay to leave a marriage. Nothing wrong with that. I'm here to help you. I'm here to do conscious uncoupling. So individual therapy, is it a bad or good thing? Yeah, both. What I really want is somebody who understands an identity crisis, a midlife crisis, or a crisis of identity, and what a person needs to go back through and fill their childhood traumas and heal them. Heal the wounds that have created the developmental holes. Talk about MLC being built on developmental holes, and it just gets too much after a trigger point in MLC. And that causes the midlife, triggers the midlife crisis. The developmental holes caused it. There's a trigger. Or like a trap door opening suddenly. Suddenly the floor becomes weaker at that point, and the holes reveal themselves. The band-aids come off of the wounds below. They need somebody to help them heal those wounds. They need somebody to help them. And that doesn't have to mean, oh, let's talk about your childhood. Maybe it does. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that kind of analysis or therapy. But they need something that is going to help them heal. Now, what is one of the first thing MLCers do? Go to therapy? No, they avoid it. First thing they could do is avoid. So they are resistant to therapy. Your midlifer is in therapy. That's great. First thing, don't complain. If you want to worry about it, go ahead. But that's just going to be ruminating in your head if the therapist is or isn't telling her the wrong things, or if they're helping her or not. It's her choice. And maybe this person can help with depression. Your wife is depressed. Now, how does it compare? You say if the answer is yes, that I've seen them go through therapy. And the answer is not yes. So I don't have an answer for how did it compare to the 3 to 7 year range. But here's what I always wondered. Life transitions are normal. And if we were in a culture that accepted transitions and had rites of passage and rituals set up to handle these, could we handle them in a manner so that we didn't get stuck in them for 3 to upwards of 7 years? Would they come in a compact unit of time? So Jesus spent 40 days in the desert, not 3 to upwards of 7 years. 6 weeks, that 40-day period, is seen mythologically in quests and different rites of passage. I don't know if there's anything to that or not. I don't know that there have been peer-reviewed studies on it, but it's something that maybe it could be changed with the right guide. Is a counselor the right guide? I mean, somebody who is a counselor might be that. Probably not, though. I would think that it would be great if the guide had counseling training as well. I'm saying probably not, though, because that's not our culture. I don't think we have that kind of a shaman or guide available for us in our culture. And if we did, they'd still be rare enough that we wouldn't know to seek them out and what they would do for us. So can they help? Can that be reduced? Sure. I wouldn't count on it. I wouldn't count on it either way, though. Expect everything, anything, and nothing. In other words, anything is possible. Is it probable right now? Let's say that in a year and a half, 18 months, 24 months from bomb drop, but 18 months from now or so, things get better. And she's home and everything feels a lot better. And okay, she came through early. It was less than the 3 to 7 years, and we're doing well. What are you going to do then to make sure you continue to do well? That you make sure you do well. That this isn't just a good cycle, and where her wounds are just kind of covered but not healed, or where it's more than a cycle. You have got a stronger band-aid. It's called the rug, and we've swept everything under that. All of the wounds. Now those wounds are festering with everything being swept on them. And in 10 years, there's another explosion. What are you going to do to make sure that's not happened? And she may be resistant. You may be resistant. You're so relieved. What are you going to do to make sure that if there is still an early return, and if it's not early, if she comes in 4 years, that things are really healed and well, and not just healing, but making amends? What are you going to do? What you should do now is heal. Work on your detachment. Work on your self-healing. Work on your self-focus. That's mirror work, self-care. Those go together, but they may not be the same thing. So self-care is I make sure to exercise and eat and get enough sleep. Mirror work is the extra things that are just as important, that have to do with healing. It's your emotional side of care. What am I doing for me that is special for me? What am I doing to take care of my mental side, my spiritual. What is called PIEs, from Marriage Helpers. And I can never remember what the acronym is. I've had different things where I've talked about similar things in the past, but never got it formulated like they have as PIEs. So if you want to look up PIEs, P-I-E-S, it's an acronym. And it'll go over, I think it goes over physical. I know there's an emotional, mental, spiritual. Can't remember what the I is for. But work on those pieces of your life. Someone in the Facebook said, I imagine all of us were pretty good at PIEs before this. I don't. We neglected lots of those things, spiritual, emotional, mental. Every one of us is often, working on so many other things at once that we do neglect those, whether we're in a crisis or not. It doesn't mean we're going to have a crisis. Probably makes us more susceptible than somebody who's doing that, but it doesn't make you invincible, just doing them. And it doesn't mean that you're going to have a crisis because you have been neglecting, but now you can start. Stop neglecting and start working on those. Okay? Because she's in a crisis and she's doing her therapy, and that's good for her. I can't tell you if it's going to work out in a positive or negative. And she's going through a depression. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know what she is. And she's feeling, is this all there is to life? I need to take control. I need to take command. I need to make the decisions for my life, and everything is making them for me. I have to be responsible to my kids and my husband. And it's just weighing me down, and I don't know who I am anymore. And I don't know what I want anymore. I just feel so lost. And then there's a depression that goes with that. And then those thoughts and those fears and the anxiety that goes with it ruminates over and over and over. And it's self-fulfilling. It just keeps going for months. It spins in her head. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know what she wants. So I'm glad she's seeing a therapist. I don't know if the therapist is helping or not. I can't tell you that part. Now I want to figure out what are you going to do for you during this time. Okay. I hope this is helpful. And I will see everybody in the next question.